Hello, Luka. Thank
Hello,
you
my friend.
for your time and for your presence for this interview. I appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome. I'm
Great,
glad to be here, and thank you for inviting me and for giving me the opportunity to share my story and what I do.
great. Yes, I'm looking forward to hear it now. First, directly from you, even though, of course, read some things and I've heard some things on your social media. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, let's get first familiar with you, Luka. You are a health and mindset coach. You are also a
Yes.
certified detox specialist. You guide people to support in self healing, to heal themselves, and I see you're also I iridology. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. So does that?
Yes. Iridology. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are an iridologist. Is that how you call it?
Well, yes, you can say it like that. I mean, it's all part of the detoxification process and everything else. I
Mm-hmm.
just look into people's irises and define their genetic constitutions and see in what shape their cells are and what organs and glands and where the weakness is, and with that I determine how well I will put for that specific person and specific body's needs of that person,
Right.
and to put a protocol for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. Um, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. First of all, I think many people were not that familiar with the term.
Yeah.
So could you share a little bit of your background and what has been leading up for you to come to this journey of coaching and
Mm.
self-healing? For us to get a context of where you come from, but also because it really shows how how powerful the mind can be and how we can use it for self-healing. So if you can just share
Yes,
in a nutshell,
definitely.
because I know it's a long story.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah. Well, when my story actually began is when I was 16 years old, and I started having chronic bowel issues.
Mm-hmm.
So at 16 years old, they already diagnosed me with Crohn's disease, which is, I presume people know what it is, because it's just like you're going to the toilet a lot daily, you're having constant diarrheas and everything, and you're losing weight instantly, like in 2 weeks, of like for 30 pounds and similar. So that's when it all started. But I was living a really hectic lifestyle, if I should say it like that, because I was literally eating everything. I was drinking alcohol, I was partying, I was taking drugs, I was doing a lot of things, but most of all, I was really bad with myself. I had a really bad relationship with myself, and I was just starting, like, I was always constantly trying to get away from reality and like just numb myself down and all of my emotions down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it actually started. And
Right.
then with years and years of not changing absolutely anything and just going to the doctors for therapies and this and medications all the time and all of this, I just started having more and more diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Then I then I got gastritis, then I got rheumatoid arthritis. Then on the end, after a decade already, I got to the point where my liver was failing, and I was diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis. That was actually the moment where I was like, okay, well, I need to change something, obviously, in my life, and I don't want to live like that, because it was like your liver will fail in a few months, and you need to be on medication for the rest of your life. So it was like, it was a choice. Either I will be a sick zombie for the rest of my life, or I will change absolutely everything in my life and live a completely different life. And that's when I had a chance. My friend actually sent me a message with a video from Dr. Robert Morse, and I was desperate enough to watch it, because it wasn't really like uh, charming to me to watch it. I really didn't have the will, but I was desperate enough to do so, and that actually was the first thing that was like, that blew my mind open.
Right.
And then I started to be more open-minded for everything. And then that was just it. I started watching his videos, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 50, 100. Then I started going to all of the others as well,
Yeah.
people that teach stuff like that. And I started experimenting everything on myself. I decided I'm going to do this, and either this is going to work or I'm going to die,
Right. Yeah.
because there's no other way around it.
I
And
see.
during that journey, and the cleansing and detoxification, I started just getting more clarity and more brightness as my gut and my body was cleaner. My
Hmm.
mind started to be more open. I started to be more aware of all of the things that I was actually doing to myself in my mind as well. So that's when I started incorporating the emotion work and the mindset work, and started learning about that and experimenting everything on that as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's how actually I started to go into all of this. And then I started asking myself, okay, why don't people know about this? Like,
Mm.
why don't people know about this? And I was like telling to everyone excitedly, which didn't go pretty well, because they thought I was nuts, and that like, what are you talking about? So that was like a big punch in the face for me, because I was like, okay, so not everyone is ready yet to hear that, but the people who are ready, they will come to you.
Right.
They always do. So that's the thing. And that's how actually I started to get into all of this, and started getting courses done and everything else. And with my experience and with the courses, I started working with people, and now there's already hundreds that work with me, and that I helped actually to get aware of their own power, and how their body is also powerful, with
Right.
the mindset work, and with the emotional and self-forgiveness and self-love and everything.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That is so powerful. And a bit later on, we will go into exactly that, like what the healing looks like in action, so to
Hmm.
speak. What I'm
Yeah.
curious about, when you said you were watching those videos, what was it that you saw or heard in that videos that really triggered, that really opened up something new in you, that made you feel inspired to start uh, do the inner work, the healing work?
Yeah, I mean, in the first video, I think it was called Everything You Need to Know About Foods. That's
Okay.
how the first video was called. It was like a 40-something minutes video. And what I actually first time figured out in that video, I got aware that actually uh, how I was thinking before, that no matter like what you consume, like it doesn't matter for health or for whatever. Like you can eat whatever you want. At least that's what they told me when I was having all those diagnoses. They told me, oh, you don't have to change anything. You just need to get your medications, and that's it. You know.
Hmm.
But so that was the problem, and that video actually got me aware. Like, if you're consuming something 3 to 5 times a day, how come does that not affect your health and your life at all?
Right.
And that was like the crucial, like, okay, that opened my mind, and I was like, okay, so I need to change that first. So I started changing that, and then the rest happened just by itself, by cleaning it out, by cleaning the body out.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so then from cleaning the body, you said you started to have also new awarenesses, your mind started to become clearer. And
Yes, exactly. Yes, that was the point, I think, because that was the point where I got aware in my mind, and I got the awareness of myself and everything around me. That was the crucial point of it all, because that boosted everything else.
right, I see. Yeah. I want to go a little bit into the term healing, because it's a very broad term.
Yeah,
And especially in the community of conscious living, self-work, inner work, it's you know, there are many different point of views to approach, healing. And I'm really
yeah.
curious on what you already, of course, showed a little bit on that, but maybe um, yeah, what else can you share about what is healing from your perspective?
From my perspective, healing is definitely the healing process starts when you get aware of what you're doing to yourself daily. Like, to me, that is how the healing process starts. When you get aware how you're treating your body, how you treat yourself in the mind, how do you feel about yourself and about life in general, and the perspective you have about it, that's crucial to get healing started and everything in your life. Exactly, because with that, not only health changes, everything changes. Like there's literally nothing that you can do in one segment. It goes holistically, it goes systematically in all different segments in your life.
Yeah, I love how you take the whole being into consideration when you talk about healing, because when most people hear healing, they're like, well, do I don't have any diagnosed illnesses, meaning often like physical illness? No, then I'm fine. I'll just drag on through life. Well, the way we think, as you mentioned, is also impacting all of our well-being, including our organs as well. And I think that's what people are not so aware of how powerful our thoughts can be, or when we believe in them, rather, how powerful it can impact our psyche and our well-being. What would you suggest to people who are starting on this journey, who are kind of aware that, you know, that their thinking is not the most suitable one for their development and for their well-being, but they, I know a lot of people are kind of stuck. They know that it's happening, but they're lacking the awareness that they perhaps have a choice, or you know, how to think differently, how to have a different perception about yourself. What would you suggest to those people, like where to start and how to start?
Yeah, that's a good question, because in my journey, what I figured out is that we are constantly having questions. The problem is we're constantly having questions like, why is this happening to me? Or why is this? Or why is that? Even though we're a little aware and we're starting the journey, we're asking the wrong questions. Like when we start to ask the right questions, not only do we get different answers, we also get different perspectives of the situation. If we would stop asking, why is this happening to me? And what is this trying to teach me? Or what is this trying to show me? That would be a completely different perspective about it. Because we're constantly living we're having like it's very common in this modern society today. We're having a victim mentality,
right?
Which is really a problem, because I was a victim. I was having that mentality for like almost my whole life. And when I got that out of the way, everything started changing for me. Because when you get that out of the way, you get aware that you are the only one responsible for your life and your health and everything that's going on. And that changes the perspective immediately, because then you know that only you can change whatever you don't like in your life about you or your job or your health or fitness or whatever. And then you start asking completely different questions, which lead you to totally different new directions.
Yeah, I love that. And it's true in society, or actually I think we're in school, we're not being taught to live life with questions. We get to believe that we just should know instantly. We just should pick a thought, and that should be somehow the reality for that moment. We don't learn to actually live with questions and allow insights to come naturally through us. So I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. And the victim mentality, I've also noticed that, you know, most people who hear victim mentality, they think of like more extreme situations, like some really major traumas, while victim mentality is much more subtle than that.
Yes, exactly.
How did you become aware of some of your victim mentality traits? And can you maybe give an example of what was some of the first victim mentality patterns that you were aware of and started shifting?
Yeah, definitely. Like first it was the thing about health. Like I thought that there's nothing I can do, so I was thinking, why me? Why am I so unhealthy? Why is this happening to me? What did I do to I don't know, to God, or what did I do to you that this is happening to me? Yeah, it was like, oh, I'm a victim and I can't do anything about it. So when that shifted, I started changing my diet. I started fasting. I started taking herbs. I started training. I started breathing. I started doing a lot of different physical stuff and physical new habits, which changed that.
Right.
Then I figured, oh, my relationships were all bad, like with my ex-girlfriends, with this, with that. I was always the victim. Like, why do I keep attracting these women that hurt me, for
Mm-hmm.
example?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see the whole picture. I didn't see that I hurt them as well, which is the first thing. And I didn't learn from anything from each of my relationships. I didn't learn anything, which meant that the lesson will always keep coming back to you until you learn it.
Right.
And as soon as I shifted that perspective as well, I wasn't the victim. Okay, so what do I need to learn from that relationship? So I learn it, and that never happens again.
Right.
And that's how it goes with every single segment. That your thinking pattern, when you get aware of those thinking patterns and what you're actually doing to yourself, everything changes.
Yeah. 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 I fully resonate with that. What I've also noticed in my personal journey is how the importance of a mentor or a coach or just some, even if it's a YouTube video like you had in that moment, to have some information of some source of someone, telling you how things could go, to show you some direction or path. Now in your journey,
Exactly, yeah.
apart from that, from those first sort of wake up videos for you, um, were there, and if so, who were the mentors or source of inspiration for your journey that helped you in getting to where you are now? And what were some of the most valuable lessons they taught you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of them. Like really. Like I also want to mention that people, when they're learning from someone and they're like uh, getting into some people's teachings and all of that, I want to let them know that they stay open, and that they don't stay at one person only and like, okay, that's the only truth there is, and I'm gonna follow just that and not everything else,
Mm-hmm.
because that's wrong, because you will get to your own truth on the end from all of them, and with your experience you will get to your own unique way of functioning in every sense.
Right.
but
Yeah.
but let me um, well, there's really a lot of them. Like Dr. Robert Morse was the first one, and then from that point I got to Dan the Life Regenerator McDonald, if you know about him, Arnold Ehret, Marcus Rodkrantz, Lauren Lockman. Then when I started being more aware and of the emotional and all of that, then I started going into Deepak Chopra,
Mm.
Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, all of them. And that's just how it goes. You just start going in circles, how you proceed, how you grow, how you learn about yourself, and then it just leads your way. It just shows.
Right.
People just come with certain videos, certain books, certain this, certain that, and you just learn, see what resonates, learn from it, experiment with yourself, try it on yourself, and move on.
Yeah.
And that's how it goes. And it just keeps leading you where you need to be and what you need to learn.
Exactly. And at least in my case, and I'll be curious to hear if it was with you as well. Like once the ball starts rolling, once you start somewhere, and that's usually the hardest part, to just take the first step. But once that door is opened, then it just goes very naturally, very
Oh,
effortless.
yes.
From one source of information to the other, to this event, to this teacher, to that YouTube channel, to this Facebook group, or whatever. It goes on and on.
Yeah, definitely. That's how it goes. Like that was the hardest thing, is always to start. As long as you start,
Yes.
that's it. You just need to keep like building that momentum and
Yes.
just rolling that like wheel, and just rolling it until it becomes unstoppable, and you just have a huge momentum, and everything just starts happening and happening and coming to you and coming from you and all of that.
Exactly. That's what I also tell people when, people don't often know when they're, starting to have these awakenings, like where do they start? And I try to tell them, well, it doesn't really matter where you're going to start, because whatever you're going to start is not going to be your final destination or your final source. You're going to move on anyway. And it's an ever evolving
Yes.
process. There's no end point to anything, and especially not to, the journey of self-development and self-healing. It's
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I agree. Definitely. Because some people start with the physical, like I did, and then they go to from the physical to emotional to mental to spiritual. Some people become like start with the spiritual and go that way. Some people start with the emotional.
yes.
That depends. Each journey is unique. That's the beauty of it. Each journey is unique.
Yes, that's the beauty and the challenge at the same time. It's like, because the path, we can't just copy someone else's path. We surely can take inspiration, but eventually,
Yeah.
we are carving our own path through it, and
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
amazing.
We need to experiment everything on ourselves. That's why that's important. We need to try it. Everything that you learn and everything that you see, just try it out for yourself and see how it goes for you.
Yes,
But
exactly.
do it properly. That's important as well,
Mm.
because some people do it for 2-3 days and they're like, no, this doesn't work.
Yeah,
And they
exactly.
didn't invest any time in educating themselves, or actually what can happen during that process, what is happening here, what's happening there. So that's also very important to do before you start any of that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I want to discuss with you an analogy. It's about a topic that I think struggled the most with, and some still it's a challenge. But I think when it's correctly understood, it's really it can be really powerful. I'm really curious on what your perspective is on that, and that is the balance between being and action. Because especially in the beginning of my spiritual awakening, I noticed that I didn't that every time when I start to go into doing all kinds of things and being engaged with other people and starting projects, that I was feeling disconnected from myself, like that soul connection
Mm-hmm.
wasn't as deeply felt as when I would just be meditating or just being in silence, being a bit isolated as well at times, like just really to nourish that beingness, which I didn't have for my whole life. I was just running and being with my mind out there. And now finally I realized that all that I was looking for, it's right here. So it was, I needed this spirit of just anchoring myself in my being, coming to the center, and then creating that fundament, that ground. Because I've realized that also the quality of what we manifest out there is a reflection of who we are being. So
Yes.
the balance between that inner work, that soul connection, nourishing, just being in the present moment without necessarily having to do anything, fueling yourself, and when is it enough? I obviously know there's no one clear answer to that. That depends on the moment. It depends on where you are at,
Yeah.
the development depends on what you want to do and so on. But I'm wondering how you are dealing with that. How did you find, or how you keep finding that balance, that line for yourself between just doing the inner work, being more in silence, and being out there in the world and helping others and whatever else?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a good question and analogy as well, because I know that it's definitely very important to have that balance, because I know that from experience, because when I started, I didn't have any grounding techniques that I did, and I almost didn't have time, like I didn't organize myself better.
Mm-hmm.
uh, it was just I was always working, always doing everything for this, either learning or doing something with myself, any protocols, working with people that are doing that, coaching people, doing this, that, constantly projects, something all over the place. But I didn't make a single hour for myself in those days, which got me exhausted. Like, I got so exhausted that I needed to like take a week off of every contact that I had to get myself back into balance.
Right.
So that's when I started noticing, like, okay, so what can I do? What can I do to bring myself back to balance and to be balanced all the time? So then I started incorporating at least 1 hour daily me time, which I would recommend for everyone to do always their whole lives. At least 1 hour daily of me time, where you do whatever makes you joyful, happy, calm, or in the present moment. Like whether it's meditation or it's someone something that makes you laugh, or was it some hobby that you love really doing and that you find joyful. Whatever it is that bring you down to the present moment and gets you out of the stressful state, which is not you in core.
Yes. Yeah.
So those little things I started doing every single day, and then I was like, I was always like this until I actually balanced out, and now I really have all those habits as well, and I'm really working on myself and constantly try to also have periods of isolation where I'm only with myself and in silence, and whenever and with everything, where I fill myself up and over the cup even, and then I can share everything that I have, because that's what we're here for.
Yes, exactly.
But if you don't fill your cup first, you can't share anything.
Yes, you're nothing.
That's the thing.
Yes.
That's why we need to balance ourselves and always fill ourselves first, which people really call selfish, for example. It really has a negative term in this society, but nothing is really selfish. If you really take care of yourself first, you can take care of yourself, of everyone else.
Yeah.
If you don't, how can you take care of someone if you can take care of yourself even?
Exactly. Yeah. I agree. You know, it's wonderful that you share it like this, to first nourish yourself and make sure you are fueled and energized, and then do all the rest. Right. Yeah. And I think also, for at least for me, it was only when I started doing the inner work and, you know, letting go of things that were not serving me, and letting go of fears, I only realized then how I was stressed most of my life. And then I also realized, with talking to other people, but just also seeing how they live, that we, for a big part, have normalized such huge part of stress. We don't even recognize it as stress often. We just see it as big city living, or just
we just see it as normal.
Yeah, so I'm sure that, you know, if some people would be listening to this, they're like, oh, well, I don't have stress, I'm fine. Because there's not this contrast yet of how really good and grounded you can feel. So when that contrast is created, then we only see, oh my God, I've been putting up with so much stress for no good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That is true, definitely, because people are in this modern society currently. We're always running to work, or running, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, or I need to do which, when people would put that I need to do that or I must do that, if they would put that in a perspective of I must take care of myself, everything would change.
Yeah.
Everything in their life would change, because people also need to know, if they're going into a healing process or changing process or something like that, when you're in a stressful state, you can't heal. When you're in a fear state, you can't heal, because that's when your body is still in the fight or flight mode.
Yes.
That's why it's important to do all those techniques to get you back into the present moment without all those fear and all the fear mongering that we're having in the society. It's all, and negativity and everything else. It's always good to be right here with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Now I want to go a bit into the part for you, how you started the work as a coach, you know, also for people who are beginners, like healing practitioners or coaches, you know, to get some inspiration or ideas perhaps. So I'm curious to hear, how did you start your work? Like after the self-realization and starting having some first fundamentally changes that you've experienced in your state of being and coming to healing, how did you then transition to start working as a coach?
Well, it started with the self-realization and everything, and healing myself. That's when I started to I joined a few groups on Facebook. I joined a few groups of Facebook. I made Instagram profiles, where I shared all those information and all the experiences that I had. So that's when I started sharing my experiences, sharing things that I found out and I got aware of, and I just chatted and just posted things on my Facebook and in the groups and on Instagram and everything else. And that's when actually people started already okay, this is interesting, I'm gonna ask him some more. And then they started asking this, asking that, and then I asked more even, and then just how the circle started. And that's when actually for the first year and maybe even year and a half, I worked for free, because I had a job on the side and I worked for free. I was always making people programs and iridology readings and everything else, because I didn't have I just wanted to learn more and get all the people you can help yourself, do it, do it for yourself. So that's the thing. That's how actually I started. While I was doing that, I was also finishing courses as well. I finished the course from Dr. Morse, which was for the regenerative detoxification specialist. Then in the UK, I finished the courses for the NLP and for coaching. And that's when I started also incorporating all of those methods and strategies to help myself and then also help others. And then I quit my job, I opened up my company and started just working and expanding myself, and as well as my consciousness. That's also the collective consciousness.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And what advice would you give to starting coaches or healing practitioners who are just taking the first steps into, doing the actual work? What is some advice, maybe some some things that you have realized in your journey that you would
well, the simplest really advice can be share your story.
Right.
Share your story, share your experiences, network with people who are already doing stuff like that, connect with people, and whatever you're posting and whatever your platforms that you're using on the internet, just give value to people.
Right.
Give value, whatever you're sharing, make that have value for people, that they can use it in their own lives and help themselves. Just consistently give value on daily basis, and just connect and network with people and share your story, because people will most likely always connect with you when you're sharing your story and you're being vulnerable and authentic. Because it's easy for me now to say, oh yeah, you need to do this and this, but if person doesn't know my story, it's hard to connect with me.
Right.
Because it's all about the connection. When you have the connection with the person is trusting you more, which means he will trust, or he or she will trust themselves more in this journey and in this process.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I also see coming back time and time again, to have a community, to share value and to create that connection with people. And then from that place, things start moving much more easily. Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. In the beginning, it's gonna be a bit harder, but as everything else, just continue doing it. Be consistent. Don't give up, and the momentum will start going, and you'll have a blast.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Hey, and what are some of the current challenges you are facing as being a self-employed coach, and how are you dealing with them?
Well, now currently I don't have any challenges.
Okay.
I had a rough time before, definitely a few months before, because I was still struggling with the balance. Like I had periods when I was really exhausted and I just wanted to like get away from everything,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really sometimes it gets really hard when you're dealing constantly with people who are really sick and
Right.
all of that, and especially if they're chronically sick. Then uh, sometimes if you don't have the time for yourself, you don't even know anymore what's yours and what's not yours. So
Right.
then I need to clean myself out of everything that doesn't belong to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started actually even more taking care of myself and consciously figuring out what energy is mine and what is not mine. So
Mm-hmm.
with that thing, I started being really, really balanced while still working with even more people than I used to. It gets like now I'm really easy and I'm all fired up and I'm always like full of energy and everything else while still dealing with a lot of people.
Right. Yes. Yeah. 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 Beautiful. Thank you. So, Luca, we are coming to the end of our interview. How can people reach you if they want to connect with you or?
If they want to connect with me, they can reach me either on Facebook. I have on a Facebook page, which is called Luka Hinic, Health and Mindset Coach, or they can catch me on Instagram, which is a profile called Healthy Vibrant Life.
Okay, cool. I will also post a link in the description section of this video.
Yeah,
Is there anything
awesome.
else? Yeah, and is there anything else you feel that is not expressed yet that you want people to take away as a completion of the interview?
Well, I would definitely want to like bring the awareness to people that they start taking care of themselves and start taking responsibility for their own life and health and whatever it is that they're having troubles with, and that they can change absolutely everything, because we need to bring like the focus more to ourselves back, to remember who we really are and how powerful we are, and that we can change our lives completely, and that we are the kings and queens of
Mhm.
our reality. And that's the really, really important thing that I want everyone to know, because that's how powerful each and every one of us are.
Yeah. That is beautiful. Thank you. I love that.
Yeah.
Luca, thank you again for sharing your experiences, your valuable insights. I'm sure that a lot of people are benefit, and there will be so much more still benefiting. Um, all right,
Thank you for calling me.
sure, no problem, my pleasure, and talk to you next
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. You
Okay,
too.
ciao. Ciao.
Bye bye.